My name is Dr. Michael Brown, and this is 3 Words, a bite-sized podcast about the simple and yet very strategic choices that every one of us can make in order to become the very best version of ourselves. In fact, today's conversation is not about us becoming the better version. It's about helping others become the best version of themselves. This conversation with my friend Steve Rieske, it takes a different slant than thinking, how do I grow? How do I develop? How do I become better? The focus is on how to help others feel fantastic about themselves. These 3 words: celebrate others often. Listen in now. Steve Rieske, when I am chatting with others about 3 Words podcast, and we talk about guests that we've had on the podcast and within the studio, oftentimes people are saying, "Oh, are you going to have Steve Rieske back?" I'm like, yes, he's going to make his way back. So it's great to have you back in the studio. Great to have another conversation with you. There are some who probably don't know who you are. We've been friends for forever. Yeah. But there's others who've never met you. So would you take a minute and just introduce yourself to our viewers and listeners?
Okay, wow. I'm Steve Rieske, and I actually met Michael 30 years ago, which is going to come into tonight's talk. I have done 1,000 things in my life. I have a master's in clinical counseling. I've done a lot with that. I've served as a pastor, as a dad, husband, life, people. That's kind of what I do.
And my friend.
And your friend. Oh yeah, we'll add that one on.
So I appreciate you being with me.
Oh, sometimes I do a podcast with my friend Michael called 3 Word Podcast. You should check out my other episodes. It's all about me. No.
It's not. In fact, it's not all about you, which is why tonight's 3 words are:
celebrate others often.
Celebrate others often. Now, It seems like a very simple 3-word phrase, and I'm guessing some listening would be like, well, of course, I do that, right? Or do you not think so?
I don't.
Okay.
Oh, as a matter of fact, so remember when we talked about how fear gets in the way of love? Fear repels love. We did that one. That we think we're loving, but somehow it keeps coming up short. And if we can pay attention to what's getting in the way, we can see where all of that love's disappearing. Well, I think the same kind of concept happens with our ability to encourage and celebrate and lift up others often. But for this one, instead of being the expert, I got to tell you, it's more of a testimonial for me.
Okay.
So here's how it works. So I met you in 1993.
How do you remember years like that? That's crazy.
Well, it was an important summer for me, and it was the kind of summer where a lot of people together, and we were a part of this large group. And you were kind of one of the leaders of the group, and really early on, you pulled me aside and you said, "Steve, I have to tell you." And I mean this, and I hope you don't take it like in the wrong way, but you talk about yourself a lot. Well, as a 20-year-old kid, that was tough for me, right? I was like, man, and I started to try to pay attention that summer. Why am I always talking about? And I did notice it. I felt like anytime a subject was up, I felt like the relational thing to do to get me credited, was somehow get the subject on me and have it be about me. But I noticed a side thing that came with it. And I think you've had other podcasts that have talked about that concept, being inquisitive about others, those things. Michael loves the word inquisitive, by the way. But I noticed that when people would bring out something of themselves, and a lot of people think about your major, where you're from, your hometown. People actually have real feelings about their hometowns. I actually had an instinct that I was supposed to sort of make fun of it a little bit compared to mine. So, you come from Canton, I come from Cleveland. I mean, Canton, it's like Cleveland's little brother down there or something, right? I might attempt to make me in a good light at your expense a little, and not enough that it would be offensive.
Right.
Enough that you're supposed to go, ha, ha, ha. But it doesn't actually build anything. It actually subtly takes away from relationships. And it's like this subtle leak going on in my relationships where people liked me and it was fun and everything else like that. But every time I would put one of those little things in play, I would actually diminish those relationships some. And I wondered why relationships didn't grow as close as I'd hoped. So I began to practice. How do we do that? How do I find out you're from Canton? And I might say something like, I asked my wife to marry me in Canton. Or
I'd be like, that's great. That's awesome. And we'd be good to build a connection.
Yeah. And Canton's not the easiest town. I don't have a lot of things about it, but the Football Hall of Fame's there or something. But there's some way I can say, hey, that thing about you, I think that's awesome. And the more I did it, the more I discovered 2 things. Number 1 is it allowed people to draw near to me. And the second one is I liked being me better.
I'm going to hit pause in the middle of my conversation with Steve Rieske right now to invite you to share this particular episode with a friend, particularly someone who you're thinking in the back of your mind, I need to celebrate this individual more. Send them the episode and then begin to have a celebratory conversation with them. Now back to our conversation. Interesting. Why would you like being you better because of that?
I know, right?
Yeah.
Because there's this counterintuitive thing that every time that I like let a little air out of the relationships because I kind of like poked fun at someone. You don't feel good about yourself when you're not being good to others. You don't. It's just not how we are, right? But so let's talk about it. So I feel better. It's going to work. But the real question. And I've been thinking about it since we came up with the title a couple of days ago, and you're thinking, oh, I'm going to be on this podcast, and what do I want to talk about is why do we not? I think it's more important even than what we do is figuring out what keeps us from just like openly encouraging others, celebrating others, making toasts to other people. Here's to you, Michael Brown, those sorts of things.
Yeah, because we do it occasionally. I mean, we could say celebrate others occasionally, which I'm guessing we all do. You mentioned a toast, a wedding toast, a special birthday, but why not often?
But you and I go to enough weddings, Lord help us, right? How often has the toast really been about encouraging the person?
Even as you say that, it's oftentimes we're telling stories about ourselves and almost,
and often roasting, right? And there's a little fun to a roast, ha, ha, ha. But the fact is, roasts don't really do much. Toasts do. So how do we actually pay attention to what's going on? So there's, and I've been thinking about it. So let's talk about the fear. Well, it turns out fear still repels love. If we're going to do podcasts about it, what does that look like because we talked about it in marriages and families and stuff, but what about just the person who just walked into the room who you're a casual acquaintance with? You're not thinking about loving them. You're not going to get married to them or anything. And yet we still have the fear. Will I be important here? Will I have social credit here? Will I be getting ahead? Am I getting behind? Are those other people getting more in touch than me? Like these things are happening lightning fast in the mind and the heart.
Yeah. Which is why oftentimes I will share, and I think I shared this in other episodes, that when you walk into a space to train yourself to be more interested in others and being interesting to others.
That's right.
But it's hard to do that.
Because of
fear.
Bingo.
And also, and we'll talk about this I'm sure soon, but I want to hear more about fear, but just awkwardness of being expressive and being kind. It just, because in our culture, it's kind of like sarcasm is cool, right? And, a little biting is, we feel like that's going to create bonds,
sincerity creates cringe. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
And the fact is, we want to get good at it. So we should talk about how to overdo it and what that would mean.
Sure.
But nonetheless, I think we need to start with why we underdo it. I mean, we like pathologically underdo it.
Okay. Now you're putting on the counselor hat. Let's hear about the pathological challenges we face. Go, Steve.
Well, again, so one of the fears is that others are getting ahead and we'll be left behind, that will be forgotten, that will be unimportant. And we have this little meter in our heart and our mind. We don't really look at it. I'm trying to think. This came up with it, but there was a kids movie, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and I was watching it with my kids. And in it, he goes to middle school, and he actually has in his mind the number of where he is in the school, and he's trying to get like super popular. And every time something good, he imagines himself going ding, ding, ding up a couple notches, only because he's trying so hard. He's a try hard, ding, 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 ding down the right, and so you get to visually see the thing that we are subconsciously doing all the time. We want to get ahead. And we believe in our hearts that if we see others get pluses, that we're losing. But it's not the truth. It turns out that the person who gives the most pluses is the person who's high up the scale.
Agreed.
And so so one of the fears is that we will get behind and we're terrified. So we have that fear that we'll be forgotten, abandoned, left behind, rejected, devalued. And so that fear causes us to be unwilling to bring those pluses to others, not realizing the more pluses we send out there, the more people go, that person must be the most secure, the most advanced person in the room. And it sends you up the scale, despite the fact that fear says otherwise.
Are there other fears? I'm curious.
Yes. Fear that it will be rejected. Encouraging is an art. Like, I don't know, supposing I told you, Michael, that the thing I admire most about you is your mechanical ability.
Well, you know I have zero mechanical ability.
I know, so I've probably missed the mark. We were joking about it here a little bit ago, right?
Yeah.
That it turns out that if I just say stuff and it doesn't hit what you value about you, then it probably will miss. So it's a little like giving a Christmas present or a present to a person, and either you know it's something they wanted and it'll hit, or you're afraid it'll be devalued. And so there is a little bit of fear, like, how do I know that if I send pluses out to others, that they will actually be received as pluses?
And not felt like just shallow flattery.
Ooh.
Because we don't like flattery. We're like, oh, that feels weird, because you're trying to get something from me by saying nice things, by encouraging, by celebrating. But even you said we can encourage people, but it seems like celebrating others often. Celebration seems occasional. Like it should be occasional. It's like we shouldn't celebrate every day, should we? I mean, I'm guessing you would say yes, but it feels like that's for special occasions when we are at a wedding or at a baptism or at a special significant, the big 5-0 birthday or something, but we shouldn't do it all the time. I mean, I'm with you. I think that we should celebrate others often, but there might be those who are listening and viewing thinking, yeah, I want, but all the time?
Well, it's to what extent? So when we were kids, there was a show called Cheers. And Cheers happens in a bar, and every single episode, the character Norm walks in, and everyone in the bar yells, "Norm!" And I've been around people who have the ability to make every person who walks in the room act like the room just got better. I'm sure she'll never watch it, but the first person that I heard pointed out was a young woman named Julianne Judge. She's since married, but I don't know her last name. But Julianne was involved with the campus ministry, and I just remember her ability. And someone pointed out, and after that I noticed, and I started watching her. Everyone who came in the room, she'd look in, and it was something like, "It's you." It's like every single person, and it wasn't an act. It actually,
she was celebrating people.
Well, she wasn't just celebrating people like, "Oh, I want to celebrate you." No, she was celebrating because something good had just happened to her. Her life got better because you walked in the room. Do you know how good that made me feel, or anybody feel, when she walked in and be like, "Whoa," as opposed to, "Hey man,"
And some would say, Steve, that's a personality temperament. That's not my personality. I'm not extroverted, but I would probably disagree and say that's a choice to celebrate others. You may do it a little differently. Your style may look and feel different, but you can't just say, well, I'm not really a celebrator of people.
Yeah, not very many of us are going to be like Julianne Judge.
Yeah.
No doubt. However,
but she probably chose her way into that kind of, she probably at some point in time continued to cultivate that, realize the powerful effect it was having, and then continue to do so. And probably is still doing it to this day.
And so notice I didn't say just pretend to celebrate. She actually allowed herself to experience that her life got better because you showed up. That's not flattery. That's not acting. It's actually just celebrating.
It is.
And it doesn't take a lot. It takes as much as the smile, but to actually consciously be aware that when somebody came in some way your life just got better, and that can be fun.
Well, you said it doesn't take a lot, but it probably does feel like a lot to someone who's naturally or struggling with insecurity, that I'm not quite enough. And so back to someone's going to get ahead of me. If you feel good in your own skin, if you feel like you're more than enough, if you feel like we're in the middle right now as we tape this episode of Mental Health Awareness Month, and actually it's hashtag more than enough is actually kind of the brand for this year in 2023. But if you know and feel and your identity is solid and you're feeling secure, you probably are able to do what you're describing much easier.
So wait a minute, hashtag more than enough. Is that you or is that something else?
No, that's actually nationally. That's the...
Can we talk about that?
Sure. We actually did an episode with Jenna Greenewalt entitled You Are Enough. So talk to me about your thoughts on that.
So Jenna might not like me, but I think that's a prison.
Interesting.
You know why?
Let's talk.
Because you're not. No, I'm not either. And as long as I'm imprisoned to the idea that I can feel okay if I feel like I'm enough, it doesn't matter who you are. You can say it. You can tattoo it. You can put the bumper stickers on. You can say it over and over and over like it's a mantra, but your heart still is arguing with you. You know what the real freedom is? I'm not enough, but I'm going to give what I have because it's fun. It is ultimate freedom when you give up on the game you can't win.
And then ultimately your probably cup is being filled up because you're giving your life away.
That's right. I know I'm not enough to make you feel well. That's absurd. I've got a Teresa for that. But no, hear me out. I know that I'm part of this thing, and it's not a matter of whether I'm enough. And of course, I think like not enough is a terrible feeling until I go, probably not, but I'm going to give what I have. And that's going to have to be enough.
Sure.
And of course, some of that semantics, only I watch people fight for enough. And it is utterly anxiety bearing because no matter how much you say it, no matter how much you do the thing, the day you give up on it and say, it's not about being enough, it's about giving what I have.
You know, I love that you always in our conversation, Steve, don't just talk about a topic at the surface level, but dive deep and really kind of unpack all of these big ideas. And as we wrap up this conversation, get practical with us. What do you suggest we do moving forward for those who are listening or viewing this podcast?
Every single conversation with every person you have, come up with a way to make them feel good about being them. Kid you not. Doesn't have to be much. And you probably won't be good at it first, but I promise the better you get at it, the happier you'll feel. And I don't, again, it's not fraud. I'm not saying pretend to think good things about people. In order to do it, you actually have to be emotionally in touch with what you like about them. You actually have to enjoy them. So when you practice the art of celebrating people, it turns out you start to notice that you're celebrating, like that you're getting, like life's gotten better. And the more you practice putting your eyes on you, trying to like pump you up, the more you diminish in your own eyes because it's exhausting. Celebrating people is super freeing. Like I love certain things about you. You're filled with optimism beyond anyone I know. If you walk into a room of 100 people, Michael sees 400. It doesn't matter. Like,
are you celebrating me right now?
You see what I'm saying? Like, and I've enjoyed these things. I've known you for 30 years. I have a library out the door and down the street. And yet I'll tell you, if I'm not practicing, you have people in your life who've been there for years and you haven't the first clue how to celebrate them because you haven't been paying attention. Celebrating people frees you up to enjoy people, which frees them up to be loved by you, which makes your relationships really fun. So celebrate as often as you can.
I have nothing to add to that except for thank you again for being here and being my friend. And there is no question in my mind that we will bring you back into the studio, not only once, but several more times. Steve, thanks for the conversation today.
Thanks, man.
I always enjoy being in the studio with my dear friend, Steve Rieske, of 30 years, as he reminded us today. And I just want to also pause and thank you for joining us for this conversation. I hope it was meaningful. I hope it connected deeply with who you are and even gives you practical steps moving forward. As well, if you're enjoying these kind of conversations we're having on 3 Words Podcast, and you want to learn more from us or hear more from us or stay even more connected to us, would you do me a favor and go to dmbcoaching.com/subscribe. Every single month, we send out a digital newsletter, just 1 email a month to all of our friends, family, and supporters. Free of charge, free content, fresh ideas, really helpful insights into how to become the better version of yourself. Again, that's dmbcoaching.com/subscribe. And we'll look forward to seeing you again in a couple of weeks.